Hello and good afternoon, everybody. Good morning to those of you on the eastern side of the world, and good evening to those of you on the western side of the world. And welcome to this edition of Pull-Ups by Hosco. Today in episode 2, we're thrilled to welcome you once again. This is obviously presented by Hosco, one of the world's leading hospitality recruitment platforms and solutions. So pull-ups, as you can see, I'm in my gym gear, getting ready to have another fantastic workout. I've got a little bit of advice for you in the back here. Please remember that you need to get in shape for your career. It's really important to get in shape for your career because it is a workout, starting a new job. It isn't the easiest thing to do. You really have to be fully able to push yourself and really get going. Okay, so now I would also like to introduce our co-attendee or our co-host for this one. It's Jose Ruiz of the W Barcelona. Jose, if you'd like to introduce yourself to the audience, that would be fantastic. Oh, I think you're on mute.
There is always one that has to be. You're on mute. Hi, everyone. I am Jose. I work at the W Barcelona, where we have these amazing, incredible views from my office. Unfortunately, it's not my office. I've been in the hotel here for only 3 months. Just recently moved to Barcelona from London, where I've spent the last 26 years of my career.
Wow, 26 years in London, hey? 26 years, that's a long time to be in London. And where did you originally start? So you're not from London, obviously. You're from Spain. Can you explain a little bit about your background and how you actually managed to take yourself from where you're from to London? It's a really interesting story.
Yes, I am originally from Cartagena, not in Colombia, Cartagena in the south of Spain, in a region called Murcia. I studied hospitality management, and then I had to do military service, but I had 7 months in between finishing university and doing my military service. So I thought, you know what, for 7 months, I'm going to go to London, I'm going to get a job as a waiter or something, and then spend 7 months and learn English. And 7 months turned into a year, and a year turned into 2, and then 3. And before I knew it, in the blink of an eye, 26 years later, I was still there.
26 years later, wow! I mean, that's brilliant. That's an entire career's worth of time out there as well. And in the context of your, in when we look at your journey in hospitality, right? You've actually worked in 3 of the major areas, obviously, of hospitality. Can you tell us a little bit about the sort of 3 major areas that you've worked and kind of how you've progressed from one to the other?
Yeah, of course. Well, probably because I came to London not knowing much English. The easiest job to get was serving breakfast in a hotel. So that's what I did. I started my career in food and beverage, did a stint as a waiter. Then I went back to Spain to do my military service. I went back to London straight after because London is an amazing city. And then I took up the job of a waiter again. Then I was promoted to restaurant supervisor. Then I got a little bit bored and I wanted to try reception. So I moved to reception. I did a stint in front office, and then I got offered a position as a night manager, working in a private members club, which I did in London. And then after 6 months in the same club, they asked me if I was interested in going from nights to days and become the front office manager. I didn't take much thinking. Going from nights to days.
Of course not.
I did that, and then I stayed for a bit longer. Then I went back to restaurants. I joined TGI Fridays as a restaurant manager, and then from then on, I just took a stock of my career and went to HR, and I started working in a small hotels and HR manager, and then from then just went to bigger and better hotels until I went to Marriott, which is what I'm working now. Where I started in London in one hotel at the London edition, then took over the W London, and I look after both edition and W in London. Then for a cluster role, looking after 6 London hotels for Marriott. And finally, I came to Barcelona, where I look after the W.
Perfect. I mean, what a brilliant career, what a brilliant journey. And I think, before we dive into our topic for today, which is how to nail interviews like a boss, I think what your career shows us is that there is so much opportunity in hospitality for people, right? So much opportunity to go from serving breakfasts to serving dinners, to doing night service, to going into room management, then into HR, moving internationally, managing multi-properties. I don't think if you'd have thought about this 26 years ago, that you would have ended up where you are today on the 24th floor of the W Barcelona, right? In a workout session with Hosco.
Yes, no, indeed. It's I have to say that is one of the things that I love about this industry, that is so varied. Even just in the confines of a hotel, you have sales, you have marketing, you have front office, you have restaurants, you have bars, you have HR, you have finance. And once you put your foot in the door, it's very relatively easy, if you're good and you work hard, to experience different areas of the hotel. I'm the living proof, right? I've done food and beverage, I've done restaurants, I've done bars, I've done reception, I've done nights, and now I'm in HR, where I've been for the last 15 years. And trust me, if I can do it, anyone can, because I'm by far not the brightest apple in the tree.
Oh, come on. I think you're underselling yourself there, of course. I mean, if you've definitely got the people skills to take you to the top, 100%. And it's a people industry, right? We need to get on well with people. And I think that's one of the core aspects, no? And obviously your analytical mind, as we're about to find out, is also very keen and sharp. Yes. Well, so without much more further ado, we'll get into it, right? So I'm just going to present a little bit now. So if you just give me 1 second. Okay. So, right, you should all be able to see this screen now. So I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about pull-ups, okay, and sort of what we're here for right now. So this is how to nail interviews like a boss, which is always one of the most important things. It's a really important facet of starting out your career, right? Of course, the first episode, we looked at how to make a CV with little or no work experience. Again, something really important, right? The CV is your first port of call. It's like an advert for you as an individual. So, of course, you need to make it as appealing, as attractive, and as interesting as possible. So the next step in that process, once you've had that CV made, potentially with a cover letter, sent it off, you need to know how to talk to people and how to really nail that interview like a boss. But first of all, Hosco. So Hosco is a global recruitment platform. We're here for you, okay? We're one of the world's leading online community for hospitality careers, jobs, networking, anything you can imagine, right? We are here to help you. We've got courses by specialist providers. We have courses by university. We have skills, so you can learn how to cook. You can learn how to better plating. You can learn Excel spreadsheet skills, especially if you're going to be looking at front house or back office, right? So as a platform, we've really got you. We're here to hold your hand, to take you on your career journey properly. Now, of course, getting ready for your job is super difficult. It's very, very tough, right? It is a gym. You do need to work out. You do need to have the best coaches, the best advice, the best possible chance of every bit of success that you want in your career, right? And that is why we are here. So, what are we going to talk to you today about? Well, today we're going to talk to you about interviews, okay? Interviews are potentially the most important part of your sort of early career, getting that first job, right? You need to make sure you come across well in an interview. You need to make sure that people understand who you are, that they can really sense, that you're a good candidate for them, that you're sort of someone that they want to bring into their organization, right? I went a bit too quick there. So, Jose, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions before we go on to the first actual slide about interviews, right? So I know, and I think you might have mentioned out loud earlier, that you were part of the opening team for the Shangri-La in the Shard in London, right? And I think you worked there from 2012 to 2015. Going to ask you a question. How many people did you hire when you were working at the Shangri-La in the Shard in London?
In the whole time that I was there, I think that in excess, somewhere between 500 and 1,000 people.
Wow. So between 500 and 1,000 people. So if we think about that, that's actually people that you've hired and put into roles, okay? How many people do you think you interviewed to get to that 400 or 500 people?
Interviewed probably 3 people for everyone that we hired. So 1,500 interviews minimum over the time that I was there, if we hire 500.
Wow.
So a lot of people.
A lot of people.
But I interviewed a lot of those for between all of us. But yeah, I mean, I normally in HR, we interview every candidate, so probably the vast majority of those I would have done.
Okay, that's amazing. That's a phenomenal number. And then if we scale back a little bit further, right? So we've hired between 500 and 1,000. You've interviewed about 1,500 to 2,000. How many CVs do you think you received during that time?
Yeah, that is just crazy. I mean, obviously it depends on the ad, but a good average, probably 25 to 50 CVs for every position.
Wow, which is a huge number. I mean, we're talking 30,000 odd CVs, something like this, 35,000 odd CVs, and that's for one property, right, in central London. How many properties does Marriott have in sort of the southeast or London area? Even a rough estimate?
In London, if I'm not mistaken, I should know this by heart, but I don't. I think it's 26 properties in London. Yeah, it's about 32 in the whole of the UK. Now then it's less in London, but 32 in the UK is over 20 properties in London.
Wow. And I mean, if we think about that, so literally the opportunity out there for the world is it's visible. We can hear it. Do you know what I mean? And Marriott. And in the context of hotels, of course, they're very complex organizations, right? So there's a lot of different varying roles. I mean, something probably between at least 100 different roles. No, maybe the departments are less, obviously, but probably around about 100 roles per minimum per hotel. No, Jose?
Yeah, totally. It's
fantastic. And so, right. So to get one of those roles, to be able to work for one of these fantastic companies like the W Hotel, like Marriott in London, or like Marriott, any one of the properties in Barcelona, you're going to have to do really well at interviews. So without much further ado, we are going to dive right into our interview special with Hosco. So let's get onto this first slide. Let's get ready to work out. Okay. And if I can click the screen properly, here we go. So first 2 slides are on a similar topic, right? We're asking how many interviews in general are part of your processes for internship positions. So we asked our audience, this was of B2B people. So this is business to business. So these are talent acquisition teams. These are HR representatives, HR managers. These are line managers. These are hiring managers. So these are the people that you would have to talk to have filled in this survey for us, right? So here we can see that 2 interviews, 55%, 1 interview, 37%, and 3 interviews at 8%. Now, this is for internship positions. I'm just quickly going to go on to the next slide, which is entry-level positions, right? And so here we can see that it's slightly different. Okay, they say 2 interviews is a bit higher, 58%. 1 interview is 27%. 3 interviews is 11%, and 4 at 4%. So I'll just go back on that slide there. Right, now, Jose, I'm going to pass over the hot mic to you and just ask you, what do you think about this kind of statistic? How does this make you feel? Do you agree with it? Do you think it's sort of reflecting the truth, or what do you think?
Yeah, overall, of course, the respondents to the survey covers a whole range of people from hospitality, restaurants, bars, and hotels. There may be slight variations depending on the area of hospitality. From a hotel perspective, which is the one that I'm more familiar with, it is very common to have a minimum of 2 interviews for every role, whether you are going for a trainee position or a permanent role, entry level or not. Because normally HR will do a screening interview, normally over the phone, sometimes in person, depending on the candidate. And then if that goes well, then the candidate gets put in front of a manager, a head of department, normally the person that is going to manage that individual. If you are looking at a more senior role, it is not unusual that there is a 3rd interview, and that is done normally with a member of the guidance team or management committee or a very senior person or the general manager. Getting a job with 1 interview, in my experience, is rare, but in restaurants, it does happen.
So I think, and then when we think about these different interviews, right? I know the next slide is actually talking about who you'll talk to. How can an early career person, someone at the start of their career, sort of prepare for these interviews? Will they always sort of follow a structure? Would you always kind of talk to the hiring manager first, and then maybe a team member or something second? Is there like a structure that people can have in their mind, Jose?
I think that the best strategy is to not to get too obsessed on I'm going to have 2 interviews and I have to tell different stories, because there is a big part, at least for me, that is around authenticity. And if you know who you are, the important thing is the best way to sell yourself as a candidate is to sell your passion for the job and the company that you're applying to. And if you are genuinely passionate about that job in that company, that will shine through. And then if you're confident that your CV is correct and accurate, then just be prepared that you're going to be asked questions about your CV and your experience. And provided that you have not lied on your CV, which I hope that nobody would, then you just need to have a few stories that you can tell and answer the questions. Top tip, storytelling.
Yeah.
Be prepared with telling stories, because they're more engaging than saying, oh, well, I have a guest that complained about something one day. Boring, puts me to sleep. Just be prepared to tell me a story. Be prepared to make it fun, to make it interesting, to give me a bit of and that will keep my attention going and will sell you as a candidate. Because at the end of the day, that's what we do in hotels, right? We create stories for our guests.
Exactly. We create magic moments and we bring people along for that ride. And if we go back to what you said at the very beginning, between 400 to 1,000 people, between 2,000 people interviewed, up to 30,000 CVs, that story becomes even more important, right? It's like you've got to break through that noise. I just thought I'd say something. If anybody has a question, if you look in on your screen right now, you'll see a Q&A. So if you could just write your questions into the Q&A section, we will get to them at the end. We'll have at least 15 or 20 minutes of a question and answer. So yeah, just to remind you that the Q&A is to ask questions and the chat is just going directly to us here in the back. So yeah, any questions in the Q&A, that would be fantastic. Thank you. Okay. So we've already talked a little bit about this, right? This is who the candidate would interview with. So generally, we understand that, especially for internships and early careers, right? We'll probably only be talking to a manager or a supervisor. The number 2 option that we heard was only human resources. And then the third option was managers, supervisors, and teams. Now, again, we've kind of talked about this, Jose, before, like literally just a second ago, but how would you approach these, right? Should our audience approach this differently, or should they always try to be as authentic and as real as they are, right? They should always try and present themselves, or should they try to adapt themselves to a different situation?
Again, I just think that authenticity always wins the day. Yeah, there might be a bit of tailoring your style to the person that you're talking to. I think that if we pause and reflect on who is the person that I'm going to be interviewing with, and if I really stop and think, what might this person want from me? And I think that is a question that many candidates don't ask themselves. And all it takes is to pause and think, okay, if I know that my interview is going to be with a person that works in HR, what do I think that this person needs to know? Because that is going to be potentially, if I think about it, very different from the manager in the restaurant. If I'm applying for a job as a waiter, for example, or a restaurant supervisor, what they would want to know. So if you don't mind, Ben, I'm gonna ask a question to everyone that is on the call, and maybe they can answer on the chat box.
Please go ahead.
I work in HR, so I asked the question to you guys, and you can put all the answers on the chat box. What do you think that if you are sitting in front of me as the HR director of W Barcelona, what do you think that I may want from you? What do you think that I'm particularly interested in knowing?
So, audience, what do you think Jose would like to know from you? What do you think is going to interest him? What does he want to know? As a human resources director, right, as well, this is very important, but what do you think he wants to know? So keep, think, ruminate, have a deep think, pop your answers. You can either put them in the chat or the Q&A, as you wish. We will definitely get to that. Yeah. Perfect.
And help you with the thinking, you may want to think, okay, as opposed to the manager of the department, whether it's reception or room service or the restaurant, what would a person that just works in HR may be interested in knowing that is different from the person in the department that I am applying for? How I communicate with a diverse variety of people. I think he wants to know if I'm a good fit in the team.
Yep.
Okay. Any more for any more?
I think that's a good. It's a tricky question in a way, actually, because I think from when I think about that, I wonder, okay, what would I talk differently to human resources, or would I try to, how would I convey? Because a big question as part of that is, what does the human resource director, or what does that person in human resources know specifically about a waiter's role, right? Or about a front of house role, or about a housekeeping role, or a chef's role? When we talk about chef roles, right, we have many different areas. We've got, from chef, commis chef, chef de partie, sous chef, exec chef, right? What specific knowledge would a HR person have along that, right? It's very interesting.
We have some interesting answers there already. Paola Herran said, who is the person behind the portfolio, the attitude? Yes, sure. And I saw another one, am I motivated? Why do I want the job? Is it only for the money? Which is a comment from Anka. And I think that is a massive point, personally, for me. And this is a question that pretty much I can guarantee you're going to get in pretty much every interview that you go and you're put in front of an HR department. What do you know about us? Because I want to know, what do you want to work for us? Which is what Anka is saying. And it's a perfectly reasonable question that I want to know. Ultimately, you decided to apply for a job with me. I am not Hilton. I am not Rosewood. I am the W Barcelona. So question that I can guarantee you that you will be asked is, why do you want to work here? You can only answer that question truthfully if you know something about the W Barcelona that has appealed to you and prompted you to apply. As Anka said, if all you care about is, I just need a job, that is not going to sell you as a candidate in the same way that somebody tells me, for example, you know what? I went to the bar the other day for a few drinks with my friend. The service that I received from the waiters, everyone seemed so happy. There was such a great energy and such a great vibe that I thought, oh my God, this is a great place to work. Everyone seems to be happy. I love the style. I love what you do. It's a very different response than when I get that is, oh, well, it's a nice hotel. You can only know that if you've decided that you want to join for a reason.
I think at the core of that answer, Jose, is it's this one word that we hear quite a lot: passion, right? It's passion, because understanding something shows your passion for it, right? It shows your knowledge about it. It shows how much you're keen for something, and I think we all want a bit of passion, especially in hospitality, where we're making magical moments happen all the time. That's literally our job, is to make wonderful guest moments, whatever that guest is, wherever they are.
Yep. Now I'm going to give you another tip, if I may, which something that you guys may not think about, but is so critical. I want to know, as an HR person, can this person literally work in this hotel? Do they have the right to work legally in the country where the hotel is based? Because if I look at your CV and you are from Italy, I know that it's part of the European Union, you can work, no problem. But if you are applying from, let's say, India, unless you tell me on what basis you can legally work, the default position is that you can't work in Spain legally unless you have a visa. So I need to know from your CV whether you have the right to work. And if it is not on your CV and I call you because your CV is amazing and you interest me, be prepared for me to ask you that question straight away. Can you work in this country? Because if you can't, then there is no point of wasting your time talking to me for an hour.
Exactly, yeah. And I think that is maybe something that a lot of people maybe forget, or they're not aware of. As you say, it is a tip. It is a top tip. You're the person, the expert that we've got here with all of those CVs that you've seen. We live in a very global world, and it feels like we're free to move everywhere, and we are. However, we're not free to work everywhere. There is a big difference. I'm British. I'm lucky enough to be able to work in Spain and in Europe because I was here just before Brexit. So I've got my papers, my visa, and everything is in order, right? This is a new thing for a lot of British people. And of course, this applies now to hundreds of other countries as well. So I think understanding and being aware of your visa status, as you've said, Jose, is super important, right?
Yes. I mean, I would invite you all to tell me, that's your CV currently, the one that you're sending out to employers today. How many of your CVs specify either your nationality or whether you have the right to work in the country for the job that you're applying for? Or let me ask you the question in another way. What percentage of the CVs that I receive at the moment do you think that have that information? 10%, 20%, 90%? What do you think?
Well, that's a great question, Jose. That is a great question. My guess is about 10%.
Or less.
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
Most people don't put it. And if I don't have that, it may make the difference between you get an interview or you don't. Because remember that I received 1,500 applications for 500 jobs.
And the law of averages, yeah, and the law of averages in that states that you as the HR interviewer, you need all the help you can get, right? Because there's not enough time in the day. You only have 8 or 10 hours at most.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, let's move on to the next slide. This next slide is very interesting, actually. I like this one, and we've talked about this previously, right? Okay, so this is how much time an entry-level interview is going to take. 30 to 45 minutes, 63%, 20 minutes or less, 23%, and more than 45 minutes, 14%. Now, Jose, what do you think about that second option there, 20 minutes or less at 23%? What does that say to you about the chances of that candidate in that interview?
Yeah, to me, it just says that the interviewer did a very poor job of interviewing you, or the interview was not set up correctly, because I cannot assess a candidate's suitability or interest in the job in less than, certainly not in 20 minutes or less. Yes, sometimes in very few occasions, you know straight away that a candidate is incredible, because there are people that are just so magnetic that you can just tell. But the vast majority of people, on which I'm one of them, I'm very average, is that it takes me a little bit more time to convince somebody that I'm worth a shot. And from the point of view of an interviewer, very rarely I get through the real person in 20 minutes, because you probably have arrived, you're probably a bit nervous. It is my job to make you feel comfortable, to build a bit of rapport so that you are okay talking to me about your life. It's very private and you're nervous. Probably it's going to take me the best part of 10 minutes just to make you feel comfortable talking to me. And then I need to delve into your professional experience or your past experience. So I personally will say that 20 minutes or less is too short.
Yeah.
And for the average candidate. And my interviews normally is definitely in the 30 to 45 minute range. For some of them a lot longer.
Perfect. And we shouldn't feel nervous about that, should we, as well? When we're starting out in our careers, it might feel a little bit intimidating to see that number and think, oh my gosh, how can I talk about myself, my work experience for half an hour? I'm a student, I'm a recent graduate. How on earth can I find something to do? But it's not that, is it? It's your skill as an interviewer, right? That you're actually going to pull that information out of the interviewee in that context. It's not that you would expect an interviewee to talk for 45 minutes. No. You would be there guiding the conversation, talking to them, right?
Yes. When I think about interviews, I'm thinking that probably the candidate would do 80% of the talking, and I would do around 20%, because I also need to tell you about the job. I need to tell you about my expectations of you. I need to tell you about the organization, fill the holes that you currently do not know. But 80% will be you talking. Some of it will be answering questions. Some of it, as I said at the beginning, telling me stories, because you can answer a question by telling me a story instead of answering me with yes or no, and that just takes time. So yeah.
Exactly. And it's a conversation, right? As well, an interview is a conversation as much as it is an interview, like you are trying to converse with someone, right? You're trying to share a story, get to know them, bond with them, get them excited, interesting on both sides of things.
Yeah, 100%, 100%.
Okay, and this next slide, well, this is a very interesting one. I know you'll remember this one. So, at what stage of the interview do you make a decision about the candidate? Okay, so our top answer here is only after seeing all of the candidates, 57%. At the end, after reviewing my notes, so that's at the end of the interview, right? That would be 24% or 1/4.
Yeah.
Halfway through the interview, 14%. And within a minute, first impression, 5%. So, Jose, what do you have to say about this one, right? I mean, if we think back again to what you said at the very beginning, 400 people hired, 1,500 CVs received, those sort of numbers. How true do these figures ring?
It rings true, and again, of course, these questions I can give you a very general answer, but take it with a pinch of salt because there are a lot of nuances to it. Somebody told me once, you can make a decision very quickly if the candidate is very handsome or very pretty, which is not what I was going to say. But the reality is that sometimes you can tell within a minute, particularly when things go wrong, that this candidate is not for me. And if the candidate comes unshaven or comes disheveled or come with dirty shoes, or I'll tell you a story which happened to me in reality. I interviewed a candidate, and in the middle of the interview, within a couple of minutes of the interview starting, the phone rang, her phone, and she reached out for her bag. And I thought to myself, oh, it's embarrassing. She's going to take the phone out. She's going to switch it off. She's going to apologize, and we're going to continue. Much to my surprise, she reached for her bag, picked up the phone, and actually answered the phone. As you can imagine, that interview ended the moment she put the phone down. But those are the extremes. But the reality is that sometimes candidates can make or break the interview within the first few seconds if they got something basic wrong.
Yeah.
They don't communicate, their appearance is not the appropriate one for that hotel, they use the wrong language, by that I mean, swear, whatever it might be like that. If you get past the basics, then you can impress with your knowledge, your passion, your drive, and then I would make the interview potentially halfway through the interview. In my experience, it's very unlikely that I will make my decision at the end after looking at my notes, because very often I don't even have time to look after the notes. I finish with one candidate, then I'm running somewhere else to be potentially another one. Normally, before the interview ends, I have a good feeling, which very often doesn't change, whether that candidate I'm going to put it forward to the next step.
Brilliant. And I guess, it makes a lot of sense. Okay. Again, when we think about the industry that we're in hospitality, right? Hospitality is a warm welcome. It's gratuity, it's a nice time. But a lot of that is based upon first impressions as well, okay? When you walk into that hotel, that bar, that restaurant, as a customer, you will judge almost immediately, right? And that interview is kind of like a customer relationship almost in a way. So, we should, whilst expecting to be judged, almost immediately as we walk in, that's the industry that we work in, right? And that's not a negative thing. It means that you can take that opportunity with both hands and really run with it, right? That's the key thing to think about this. It's that first impressions count and can really count positively.
Yes, 100%. If you get the basics are the basics. They're the foundation. Make sure that those are non-negotiable. Get those right, because if you don't, you've already lost the battle, no matter what a magnetic personality you have. Once you get past those basics, then be prepared, be honest, have the right preparation, research the company, research. Today is so much easier to research even the person who is going to interview you. If you don't know the name of the person, which you normally do, then ask, who is going to be the person that I'm going to interview with? And then go on LinkedIn, find who the person is, and look at their career. That gives you so many opportunities to talk to the person about them. Oh, I saw in your CV that you work here and here. Wow, I saw that you work in the Seychelles. Oh, I want to go on holidays to the Seychelles. You are building a connection point that could maybe start a conversation that buys you time and gives you the opportunity to talk about something other than, or something that opens up the storytelling element.
Exactly, which is the key thing, yeah. You know, getting back to that idea of storytelling, of building up relationship and rapport with everybody, and actually, I think our next slide sort of confirms that as well a little bit, right? So, at the interview, you know, would you expect the candidate to have knowledge about the company? So we can say in that, you know, history, recent news, some names of some brands. If it's a hotel, obviously it's important to kind of know facilities that they might have, because that obviously that implies a lot of different job roles as well, or the
Yeah.
locations. So here we can see 50% of our respondents said it's nice if they do. So it's nice if candidates do know something. 37%, so that's about 1/3, just over, said always, this is a must. And then 13%, which actually is it's quite high, I'm surprised really here, saying not needed, they are here to learn. So again, I think we've covered that a little bit in the previous slide, Jose, but where do you sort of fall on this one, right? I mean, if we're talking about the W Hotel, you know, and I say to you in an interview, I would love to work at the W Hotel. I think it's fantastic, such a great place, right? What would you feel? You know, what would you ask me after that?
Yeah, look, I would ask you, why do you want to work here? And that I've caught so many candidates totally unprepared for that. I disagree personally with the 13% that said that is not needed, and that they are here to learn. Yes, you're here to learn, but you're here to learn about the job and about a trade. You are not here to learn about the company because you've chosen to apply for a job with me in this specific job. And I think that I don't expect a candidate to know the history of W from the moment we were invented until now and every hotel that we own in the world. I don't expect you to know anything about Bill Marriott necessarily, but it helps. I certainly expect you to know, if you're applying for a job in our restaurants, I would expect you to know the type of food that our restaurants serve. I expect you to know whether it's a big restaurant, whether it's a small restaurant, whether it's a Japanese restaurant or it's a pizzeria, whatever. The total basics. If you don't, then the question that I will be asking myself as you sit in front of me is, if you don't know anything, how do you know that you want to work here? Why did you apply in the first place? Because if you want is just a job, then I'm going to be thinking, well, then I want people that want to work at W. I want people that are passionate about my brand, because these are going to be my ambassadors talking to my guests.
Exactly.
And if you really care about it, I'm not here to teach you about loving my brand. Well, I will hopefully encourage you to love it even more, but I want to know that you want to work here.
Yeah, so and it is that thing, isn't it? It's that insight into that candidate's mindset, right? To understand them a bit better. As you said, it's so easy to open up your phone, to open up a browser, to go to Google, to type in the W Barcelona. You can find the LinkedIn page, you can find the employer branding page, you can find the company corporate page. You can do 5 minutes research, right? Would give you the names of 2 of the restaurants, a couple of the bars. You would understand some of the facilities, right? That makes you look like whilst not an outstanding candidate, it certainly makes you look like a prepared candidate, which is obviously what we all want to appear.
Yeah, and listen, I do understand, and again, to give you an example of something that surprises me, but I see it very regularly from people starting up in industry. The other day, I'm screening CVs for various roles that we are currently advertising for trainees. And I go into my first job, it's a trainee in a sales department, and I screen the candidates, and I have this candidate, call it Bob, and Bob has applied for a job as a trainee in sales. Great, I look at the CV, has little experience, just studied in a very well-known university. Fabulous. I leave him on the, okay, potential candidate. I move to the next vacancy, trainee in the restaurant. I open the CVs, I see a name, Bob. I say, oh, is this the same Bob? So I open the CV, same person. Oh, okay, sales and restaurants. Okay, maybe he has 2 interests. Then I screen the CVs, I leave Bob on the food and beverage position as well as a potential. Then I move to the next vacancy in HR. And guess what? I open it, first candidate, Bob. And I'm thinking, okay, I've been there. I've been at points in my career when I really do not know what I want to do. It's not that I don't know what I want to do, it's that I'm open to trying different things. And that is great. And that is gold dust, and experience as many things as I have. But you need to decide, I want to experience different things, but I need to start with one. So do I want to get my first experience in sales? Then apply for a sales job. And then later on move to F&B and then to HR. But don't apply to several jobs in the same hotels, in the same company, because potentially, as it happened to Bob, I look at all the jobs and there he was. And because I'm the same person looking at all the CVs, I got the impression, which is the right impression or the wrong impression. But to me, it doesn't speak great things about Bob, because it gives me the impression that Bob really doesn't know what to do.
Exactly. And I think, you know, actually through that, what I hear as well is this idea of transferable skills, right? You can start in sales in a hotel or in a bigger corporate company, and you will learn a lot of skills that are transferable from that area, be them technical skills, so things with Excel, things with computers, to the other side of things, softer skills like communication skills, talking, presentation, right? Both sets of technical harder skills like Excel stuff and softer skills like talking and presenting, they can apply to different roles, right? You could move from sales into rooms. You could move from rooms into human resources. There's literally no reason that you cannot move. But as you said, don't be the scattergun at the very start, right? It looks bad. It looks like you don't know what you want, right? And it looks like maybe you're not a serious person or a serious candidate.
And guys, it's not my job to give you career advice. I'm here to fill a vacancy for a waiter or for a restaurant supervisor or for a salesperson. It is not my job, much as I would love to do. I love this part of my career. But as an HR director at the W Barcelona, if I'm looking for a waiter, I don't have enough hours on the day to spend giving you advice whether you should work in sales or food and beverage or reception. I need you to come to me saying, Jose, this is what I want to do, and I'm your best candidate.
Yeah. And you will take a chance on someone who gives them, who presents that opportunity, right? That's the whole point, you know, as well, because people deserve that chance and they will get it if they focus. Yeah. You've still got to be focused, right? There's no excuse not to be focused, not to be prepared. You know, all of these things are givens, I think, right?
Yeah.
Okay, next slide. Again, it's quite interesting. I think this, well, I've actually seen this question asked a few times in the chat and in the Q&A. When is it a good time to ask about salaries and benefits? Now, this is a very prescient question for right now. I think that, you know, we're all interested in salaries. So 54% at later interviews. So if we consider that there's 2 interviews, maybe this would happen in, you know, the 3rd interview. But that could also be very awkward because that might be a team member or a person more senior and managing to you. 39% in the first interview, 6% before the interview, and 1% not in an interview at all, better over email. Now, Jose, what do you think about this sort of particular stat that we've got here? Right, it is a tricky topic. You know, there are reasons on both sides why we publish salaries and why we don't, and that they all make sense. But you know, yeah. let's just dive into this as best we can.
Yeah, I mean, when I did the survey myself, that question really got me thinking. I've been privy to a lot of discussions online about this topic. There isn't a right or wrong answer here. You are going to be sitting in front of interviewers who expect you to ask the question, and they're going to be okay with you asking. And you will sit in front of people that will be offended by the fact that you ask. And not one is right and not one is wrong. Therefore, what I would invite you to consider is to think, if this is super important to me, and it may be because you live in an expensive city and you need to pay the rent and it's very expensive and the rent is going to cost you so much, therefore you need to earn as a minimum X amount, then it's a super important thing for you. Then ask it at the earliest opportunity. Mm-hmm. Package it the way you want. You can package it by telling the interviewer, listen, this is a very expensive city. I've just moved in. I have a lot of expenditure to do. So for me, it is important to know that I can afford to live here and to work with you. Therefore, can I ask you what salary you're paying? And even if you give me a range, that gives me a bit of an idea, because I don't want to waste your time interviewing me. And then at the last interview, I tell you, oh, actually, I can't. So if it is important to you, ask it at the earliest opportunity. If it is less important, then ask it at a later point or not at all. So I think I put that on you. If it is super important to you, then ask it early. And if the person gets offended, guys, that is not your problem.
Yeah,
that
I
is
think
the
that's
problem.
the most important advice. Eh? That's really important advice, because money is important. Whilst it doesn't make the world go round, money does pay rent, money does buy food, money does pay transport costs. It does help with children, and it helps with elderly relatives as well if we've got them, right? So it's not a rude question to ask. It is an important question to ask. You don't have to be afraid of asking it, but you have to understand how important it is for you, right? Is it the key part of this? Or is the potential that that job offers you a key part of it? When we start out in bigger organizations, often our salaries are a little bit lower than we would like them to be. But what we have there is potential for progression, right? Potential for promotion, and potential for new roles and new experiences. So I think that's also really key to think about, no, Jose?
Yes, totally. And most of you, I guess, that you're on places like LinkedIn, or that you have colleagues or friends or fellow students. Use your network. If you really don't want to ask the question at the interview, find somebody who currently works in that company, in that job, or knows somebody who works there. I bet you that you will find it. And then ask the person, fire them a message. Hey, I know that you did an internship at the W Barcelona in food and beverage. Could you tell me how much they pay you? Do you have any idea how much they pay for a waiter? You probably can get the answer. At least enough of an answer to give you an idea.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's part of the research process, and it's also part of the approach towards that company, right? Focus on what's important for you, and try to get there in a nice way. Always a tricky question, the salary question.
But don't be afraid to ask at an interview any question that is important to you. And if you lose a job because somebody got offended by a question that is reasonable or important to you, then I invite you to consider, do I want to work for a company where I cannot ask a question? And I would say, I don't.
I'm 100% with you there. I think every question realistically should be approachable. It goes back to this idea of trust, right? And that's a big thing. You're going to trust this company with your career. They're going to trust you with a responsibility of a role. I think, and that trust, the stronger, the better that trust bond is from the very moment, the better that relationship in terms of career will be.
Yeah.
And talking about relationships, should a candidate send a follow-up email after an interview? I loved this question. I think it's a really interesting question, right? And I think our audience has answered it very nicely. Okay, 67%. It's nice if candidates do, but it's not necessary. 15% yes, only after the first interview. 14% yes, it's a must after any interview, and only 4% said no need. I love this question, right? Because I feel like it really touches a point of trying to build rapport with people. But Jose, what do you think? What's your thoughts on this one?
I'm in two minds. I cannot stop to think, what have I done when I was looking for a job? And now that I'm on the other side of the table, when I'm a recruiter, what do I like candidates to do? And I think, well, if every candidate that I interview would send me a letter, my inbox would be like thousands of emails long. So I would say, do I like it? From some candidates, I do. I tell you what I like. I like when an interview has gone well, and this is the icing on the cake. I like it when the letter is not a boilerplate. Dear Mr. Ruiz, I really enjoyed talking to you. I look forward to hearing from you soon. Because that to me says, this is a template that you put my name and send an email. Easy, no effort. I like the ones that effectively use the thank you letter as a continuation of the relationship building that we have had during the interview.
Mm-hmm.
I have a candidate that sent me a letter saying, Dear Mr. Ruiz, thank you for taking the time to meet me today. Standard. I really love to hear about your experience, and the fact that you work at Shangri-La really resonated with me. That person has made an effort, has demonstrated that they listened at the interview, are trying to hook me back to a bit of conversation that we had at the interview, which made me remember the interview and remember them. And they've personalized it to a point that I will be more likely to remember them for all the positive things. I would say only send a follow-up letter if the interview, you come out of the interview thinking, you know what, I nailed it.
Yeah, which makes a lot of sense, right? You're confirming something there. And actually, I've got a question then. Could we reverse that situation? Could we say if you really wanted that job and you felt that you misspoke on a question and you regretted almost, an answer, or you regretted a single word answer that you gave, and you left and you thought to yourself, do you know what? I need to write that interviewer a mail just to A, apologize for my misspeaking or for the thing that I said, and B, to reconfirm that I'm really interested in this role, right? Yep. I mean, how would you feel if you got one of those emails?
I would love it. I would love it. If the interview went well and there was one question that probably I haven't even noticed that the question didn't go well, but you did. And if I receive a message from a candidate saying, I felt that I didn't give you an answer to this question because you caught me off guard, but I've been thinking about it and, 2 bullet points, brilliant. This person has thought it through after the interview, and that to me demonstrate that actually they were paying attention, they feel bad with themselves, and they want to make amends, so to speak. Mm-hmm. I think that I would have huge amount of respect for that candidate.
Yeah, and hey, do you know what? That falls neatly into this box of passion as well, right? That you're memorable, that you remember something, and you've got that passion to follow up, right? In the nice way. And you could even preface it with a, hey, look, I don't expect an answer. I just felt I had to clarify,
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, so we're coming to sort of towards the end of. We've got 3 more slides left now. So this one, what makes a memorable candidate? Okay, great knowledge about the role, general appearance and confidence, relevant questions, preparation for the interview, able to talk about themselves in a critical manner, eye contact and a firm handshake, and at the very bottom, having all the answers, right? I think the last one, number 6, having all the answers. None of us have all the answers, and if we think we do, we definitely don't, because we don't know enough. But do you agree with this sort of what our audience has said previously in terms of the order of them?
Yeah, by and large, yes. I think that nothing trumps great knowledge about the role. Doesn't mean about the role in my company, but about what this role does, and the skill set. Nothing trumps that. The only nuance is that number 2, that is general appearance and confidence, that you can demonstrate before you open your mouth. Mm-hmm. So if your appearance is not good and your confidence is not there, that could be a barrier to me being interested in your knowledge and your skill set. Mm-hmm. So I think that both of them, provided that the appearance is correct, that you're not being a disaster, and the confidence is there to a degree that you are a person that I feel comfortable talking to, then is when you can shine and demonstrate your knowledge and skills.
Perfect. And I think on that one, I mean, I'm a bit older maybe than the people that are out there starting their first jobs, but I've been on LinkedIn for a long time now as well. And the number of stories that you read where people's appearance has let them down at the beginning of an interview, but they've addressed it with their interviewer, right? They've walked in and said, look, I'm so sorry, Jose. I know I look like a mess right now. On the bus, someone spilled coffee on me. And then I fell over because the floor was wet. So I've got dirty trousers. I do deeply apologize. This is not, if we address the things that might be the issues sort of at the beginning, if we front load, if we explain, and if we have that confidence, which is quite important, right, to explain, we can overcome issues like that, can't we?
Yes, and there are people who are naturally shy, and there are people that are naturally very confident and fill a room, and that they've arrived because you can see them or hear them. I've walked into the lobby looking for a candidate that I've been called, the candidate is waiting for you in the lobby, and I go to the lobby looking for them, suspecting that they're going to be sitting somewhere in a corner on a table, and cannot find them. And it's because the candidate is standing by the concierge having a good old chat with the concierge guy, or with the receptionist, and he's having a really genuine, familiar conversation with them. We said, oh my God, this person is like very confident, that has gone straight away, and actually was asking them questions like, what is it like to work here?
Yeah.
I'm coming for an interview today with Jose. What is he like? Great. That's what I want, people that show interest and initiative. And I have also had candidates that are sitting in a corner like a quiet mouse, which is perfectly fine. But if you are a very quiet person and you're applying for a job as a guest relations manager, I don't know, probably I would think you need to reconsider whether the job and your skill set or your matches your style and your personality. I'm not saying that a quiet person can never make a great guest relations manager. I'm sure there are hotels that their skill set that they need is different, but that is with the research come into place. Would a very quiet person make a great waiter at TGI Fridays? It's not impossible, but it is unlikely because the waiters are very out there. Would a person that is very shy be a great person working at the W London in our events department? Maybe, maybe not. Would a very active, energetic person be great in finance when they're sitting at the desk? Maybe, maybe not, but probably they will be better using their skills and their confidence in a department that demands that skill. So they are playing to their strengths.
Exactly. That's the key phrase as well. I play to your strengths. Do you know what I mean? I'm not one of the people that you want sitting in front of an Excel spreadsheet. I know that. I think all my previous past bosses and all my future ones do as well. Really, you don't want Ben in front of an Excel spreadsheet. It's not where I belong. You know, but that's the thing. Play to your strengths. Become the person that you are, and you know, explain that to your interviewer when you're in that process. It's really important. I'm talking about very important things. What questions should an interview ask you, right? This is something, again, really, really important. Okay, we've just seen that is actually quite an important part of this one. So what questions should an interviewee ask you? More details about the role, about the team dynamics, career progression, training options, salaries down there at number 5. So we see some of our respondents were maybe a little bit unsure about that one. And then vacation at the end. Now, I can understand why salary and vacation come at the end of that. But again, it's quite important, Jose, not to feel comfortable with that organization that you're talking to at that point, right? What do you think about this sort of order that we've got here?
Yeah, that question made me smile a little bit when I read it, because it's like, what questions should you ask? What, you need to ask the questions that you need an answer for. If career progression is important to you, and the information that would make you feel comfortable taking or not taking the job has not been answered, then ask it. So there is no real career progression is not important, then why ask it? If salary is important, ask it. If it isn't, then don't ask it. If vacation is important, ask it. If it's not important to you, then don't. Again, sometimes I sit in front of candidates that when you ask them, have you got any questions? And you see that they're, oh my God, and they ask you a question that they just made up on the spot, and you can just tell, is that I'm not telling you, ask me a question for the sake of asking. I want to know if you really have anything that you want to know. This is a two-way conversation. Yeah. I need to sell you the company, and you need to sell yourself to me as a candidate. So if there is something that is unclear to you, could be about the job, could be about anything of the things on the screen, then ask it. If it is important to you, that's what an interview is for.
Yeah, it's for clarifying doubts now as well, yeah?
Don't find out afterwards and then realize, oh my God, I should have asked that question at the interview, because I would have known I wouldn't have taken this job. Well, then ask it at the interview.
Exactly, it's really important. I mean, I've got there's a couple of questions that I always ask. There's one I'll keep to myself, but I think, you know, there's many questions you can ask, right? And it depends what role you're going for, but always asking more details about the role is always a good thing, because a job ad or a job advert is generally what you will see, the first thing you'll see for a new job, right? And that could be, you know, waiter at the W Hotel with a lovely photograph of the hotel itself, or maybe the restaurant. The next thing you'll often see is a job description. And now in the job description, they go into a bit more detail about the role itself. Oftentimes those job descriptions are made up of people's previous work experience, and they're kind of put together, or sometimes they're bespoke for a role. But by asking clarification on the role, it covers 2 points, right? It really helps the interviewer understand that, A, you know about your role, because you can ask them questions about the detail you've seen in a description or an advert. But then it also shows that you're super keen and really interested to understand what you will do. So I think, you know, there's a lot of great clarification questions that we've got, Jose, no? And they make you stand out as a candidate and as an individual.
Totally, but do not ask questions to look clever.
No.
That's not, ask questions because you really want the answer to something, and could be something trivial, could be, you know, I don't know. I've heard that you have amazing event space, even that you're not applying for a job in events, and you are very curious to know what's the biggest capacity of your biggest room. You just want to know out of curiosity, ask it. That's what the interview is for.
Exactly. Yeah. There's literally hundreds of questions. And again, like you've said multiple times, right? It's about creating rapport. It's about understanding. It's about understanding if you're the right fit for the company, and for the company to understand if they're the right fit for you, and vice versa, right? So the better, more accurate questions you can ask, the more engaged you feel in that, the better the result is going to be at the end for everybody.
Totally, 100%.
Okay, and now for our very final slide. I think this is one that everybody always wants to know, right? But this should be fairly obvious. What are definite no-nos? What are things that you should never do? I mean, number one, unkempt appearance. Number two, appearing distracted. Number three, uncommunicative or single word answers. Number four, passive listening. Number five, not asking questions. Number six, talking too much. Number seven, not talking enough. And then number eight, not asking for clarification on difficult questions. I would probably flip the order around of them somewhat, actually, especially number eight, I think would be much higher up. But Jose, what do you feel about this? I mean, of course, some of them are very obvious no-nos, but what do you think about these? Anything that you would change around in the order, or?
I think that definitely number eight, if things need clarification, you need to ask it. If it's important to you making the right decision, it's your career, it's your life. So ask away. That's what an interview is for. There is some people say there are no stupid questions. The stupid thing is not to ask a question that is important to you. The definitely number one is unkempt appearance, that I agree, because if you lose that, when I see you the first time standing in the lobby talking to the concierge and you're looking not appropriately dressed for my hotel, you've already lost me. It cost you a lot of hard work to turn me around. And appearing distracted depends. I mean, sometimes you get interviewed in the middle of a restaurant, in the middle of a busy service with a very pretty waitress or waiter. It's very difficult not to be distracted, right? But try to keep attention, because again, if the distraction get in the way of the interview, then you need to be laser focused on what you're there for.
I think also you can even add a little. You can add a little there. No, I mean, if you are having this interview in a slightly inconvenient place, you maybe if it's very distracting, maybe you can even point out things that you find extra distracting about this. Like, for example, oh, sorry, Mr. Interviewer or Mrs. Interviewer or the interviewer, there's a table over there that's not been seen for 5 minutes. I mean, again, that type of thing can make you seem good. Or if you ask, look, this is very distracting, I'm finding it hard to hear you. Again, there is no silly questions to ask. If this is an interview and it's important for you, you should feel at least confident enough to say, please, can we arrange this in a slightly different area, right? I'm a bit hard of hearing maybe, or I can't hear you clearly, and I want to give you the best possible answers, right? In that context, taking a bit of control is not a negative thing.
Yeah, I would probably swap number two and number three. I think that being uncommunicative trumps, because that's the whole point of an interview. I want to meet you, I want to know you, I want to get to know you. And if you don't give me anything back, that makes my job really difficult. It makes the interview very difficult for me, very boring. And it's going to be very difficult for me to assess your suitability for the job because you're not talking.
Exactly. And I mean, it can come across a little bit rude as well, to be brutally honest. If people are not answering you with more than one word, if they're being a bit, we have another word, sullen. It feels a bit funny. You're trying to get a job here. You're trying to interview with me. I want to see a bit of enthusiasm or a bit of excitement or a bit of interest, at least in this one. And if you're not showing that, well, then honestly, brutally, why are you here? And if it is because you can't hear or there's an environmental issue, then again, you should let me as the interviewer know that this is not quite right. This isn't working for you. And especially we think we're in hospitality, we've got to be a bit confident, right? There's a lot of roles that involve confidence. There's a lot of roles that involve us talking directly to people that we've never met before and to clients and to customers.
I would just suggest to our audience here something that probably very few will do anyway, but I'm going to say it. Interviewing is a skill, like any other skill. If you want to learn how to play the piano, you probably will get yourself a piano and practice. If you want to ride a bicycle, you will get a bicycle and practice. If you want to learn how to ride a bike or to do anything, interview is the same. You want to get really good at it? Practice. Practice with each other, practice with your friends, just for 5-10 minutes, and then get feedback. How did it sound? Record yourself. It's cringeworthy, but helpful. And because the more you do it, the better you get at it.
And that's a really important point as well, right? If you do that little practice, it's much better to cringe at what you've done at home alone with your friends than in the interview, or gosh forbid, after the interview, right? I mean, get the embarrassment out of the way beforehand, get a bit of practice in, get over it, and then in the interview you have the time to shine, and it's the perfect place to do it.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, so we've come to the end of that. I think that was really very interesting. Jose, you had some amazing insights for us there. And I can see that there are 33 questions in the Q&A. There's about 15 in the chat as well. The QR code that you can see on your screen right now, we'll try and whip through them quite quickly, because I know we've already gone 6 minutes over.
I'm fine.
Well, I know you've been standing as well, but this is a gym. We are here to work out, so it's good to keep the blood flowing. The QR code that you can see on your screen right now, if you scan that will take you to the Hosco website, where you can register. If you're not already registered, you'll also be able to join further and to find the jobs and internships that we've got available out there all across the world in over 80 countries, in hundreds of different roles, for thousands of different companies, and of course one of the prime ones being Marriott and the W Hotel, which is one of our amazing partners. So I'm going to exit this presentation, so if you just bear with me 1 second, I'm going to change the view so they can see both of us. Okay, Jose, so let's dive into some questions. Right. Oh, quite like this one, actually. This is from John. Do you think that employers are going to start investing more in making their websites equally attractive for potential employees as they do for guests? Given the problems that the industry has with, the number of people that we need to recover from the pandemic losses, right? So do you think there's going to be a big kind of a step change in the way that companies advertise themselves to candidates? Obviously, the W is an exception to that already. But for the rest of the world out there, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that is already happening. I think that a lot of companies are rebuilding their websites. I think that they are reviewing their application process. I think that a lot of employers are moving their recruitment, a lot of it to social media. So you're seeing a lot of job opportunities through LinkedIn or even Instagram and Facebook. So I think that everyone is, well, not everyone, but that there is a lot of investment and time spent in improving the candidate experience.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I think so as well. I mean, if we, so the rough figures are we used to have about 340 million or so people in hospitality in 2019. We lost about 62 million jobs during the pandemic. We've already gained back about 20. So, we're on the path to growth again. And I think, the more people we can bring back, the faster that recovery will be. There's a brilliant question here from Vitor. Vitor asks us, how do you break barriers when you are foreign and looking for a management position? And I think, Jose, this is a question that you uniquely can understand actually right now. So how did you cross those barriers? Because, I mean, as a British person, I know that sometimes the UK can be tough if you're not British, especially if you have an accent. So how did you cross those barriers? What did you do? And, what kind of tactics did you use?
Yeah, I think that and I like to think that this is what people would say about me. Hard work and passion transcend language and nationalities. Mm-hmm. There isn't a single person in any hotel, in any country in the world, that is not going to notice if you are passionate and that you work hard. You do those two things, it's a winning formula. It may not happen at the speed that you would like it to happen, but it will happen.
I think so. No, hard work, passion, and then involvement and being engaged as well is really, really, and it's really important to show that you want to be there. You're there to work, and I think we can always sort of beat this the difference factor that we feel. And actually, maybe that can be something to strengthen your candidacy. that you are different, that you do have a different way of thinking, that your education was different. It means that you have a different way of thinking, which I think can be invaluable in a lot of environments. No.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a very good question. And yes, I've started my career in the UK, being a foreigner, not speaking the language very well, but I've made a pretty good, solid career for myself in many different departments and many different organizations. So, yeah, good question.
And I've got a brilliant one here from Danka as well. Danka, so her question would be, what do you think about admitting past mistakes or our current real weaknesses or difficulties in a job interview? Is being vulnerable like that, is it a positive thing, or can it set you back in the application process? I get exactly what she's asking here. It's a really great question. When we're asked, hey, what are your strengths, blah blah blah, okay, I could do them very well. What's your weaknesses? How vulnerable can or should or would we be?
Mm-hmm. I think, and remember that I've mentioned this word a few times now, authenticity. I can only speak for myself, but I know a lot of people in industry. Nobody's looking for the perfect candidate, because there isn't such a thing as the perfect candidate. Mm-hmm. We're human beings, we are imperfect. And whoever tells you that they are perfect, they're wrong. So the important thing here is to self-awareness. Know what you're good at. Know what you are less good at. Doesn't make you bad. You are less good, and I'm less good at a lot of things. Mm-hmm. But always think, I'm going to show my vulnerability, but say, what are you doing about it? What did you do on that specific example? How do you address that weakness, if you like to call it a weakness? I, for one, I am a very passionate guy, and sometimes my passion gets in the way of my communication. Mm-hmm. I'm aware of it. And sometimes when they ask me in an interview, not that I go to interviews, but when I did, I am asked, well, what would you consider to be your areas of development? And I said, one is to rein in my passion. Mm-hmm. If I leave it at that, then they will make up their mind of what I mean by that. So I explain it. Sometimes I get very passionate about a topic and I just get carried away and I can talk about it for hours, and some people just disconnect, and I am aware of it. And that awareness is point number one that will win you the interviewer, And B is, how do you counteract that weakness, or what do you do to balance it? But you know what? The passion, on the other hand, helped me in this aspect of my job in HR. I can sell the organization really well because I'm passionate about it. But I know that on occasion, I need to remind myself, Jose, slow down, that you are getting a little bit too carried away.
I think that's an absolutely brilliant answer. Hey? That's fantastic. Self-awareness and sort of self-realization. Because of course, any problems we do have, we should look to overcome them anyway, right? If you're a bit introverted, maybe we should look to being a bit less scared of talking to people. If we're a bit extroverted, maybe we should rein ourselves in a little bit. It works on every way. I think it's a fantastic bit of a audience. If there's nothing else you take away from this hour-long session, take this away. Self-awareness is the key thing that you can have in an interview, right? Acknowledging problems and the solutions you're bringing to them. That's fantastic. That's fantastic advice. That I think that's worth every penny that we could have paid for this. Brilliant. I mean, there's loads more questions, so let's have a look at this one. Francesco Valente has an interesting question here, right? When a company asks you to do like a group assessment, okay, you have to bring an object to an interview, or if they ask you to sell a pen or something, what are they actually trying to assess in that? If they ask you to do like an instant presentation or an instant sales piece, what are you as the interviewer trying to assess in that specific moment?
So they're asking you to do.
The question is, like, if they ask you to bring an object to a group assessment interview or to an assessment interview, and you have a minute to present yourself and talk about the object that you've brought with you, what are they actually trying to look at? What are they trying to sort of assess? If we're asked to present something immediately with no preparation, what are you looking for?
I mean, it's difficult to tell because a company may take different views. What I can tell you, that I guarantee you, they don't care what you bring. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh my God, he's brought a car. It doesn't matter what you bring. The important, I like to think, and we've done that before, it is about your communication and presentation skills. You brought an item. Is your storytelling in, I brought that item and this is the reason why. Tell me a story. I brought a picture of my dog because, I love dogs and her name is Fifi and she's amazing and blah. Is how you tell the story, how you engage the audience, and how you present that story, how you package it. Remember that our industry, a big part is engagement with your colleagues, engagement with your bosses, engagement with your guests. If you've been asked to bring an object that you get to choose, and then you cannot tell me anything exciting about it, then I think, wow, when I give you my menu and I expect you to sell it to my customer and you didn't get to choose it, wow, then you're not going to be able to do that with an object that you haven't even chosen.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that is the presentation and communication skills.
I think that's a great answer there. It's a tricky one. I've got to say I've not been asked to do that in an interview, and that might throw me as well. We've got a lovely question here from Mattia, and they want to know that. So how, if I am an anxious person, how would you treat yourself as an anxious person? Right? Are there any tricks that they can use to be less anxious before stuff? Yeah, I guess here that what they're saying is, how would you treat anxiety before and during an interview? Are there any tricks that you can use to be engaging towards the interviewer? Really interesting question.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a particularly anxious person, so I don't know how well placed I am to advise you. But if I am to answer your question in some form, is preparation. The more prepared you are, the less likely that you are to be caught out with questions or in a situation that you did not see coming that will trigger your anxiety. So feeling confident, you're going to an interview, make sure that you know where to go. Make sure that you know where the hotel or the bar or the restaurant is, so that you're not getting anxious. Oh my God, I'm running late. I don't know where the place is. Oh, I thought it was here and it's not. What tube do I get? Am I arriving? Oh, I'm arriving late. Give yourself plenty of time, know where it is. Find out who is the person that is going to interview you, so that you are not stressing out on the way there. Oh, I don't know if it's going to be the general manager, it's going to be the HR director, it's going to be my future boss. Find out, who is going to be the person that I'm going to be sitting with. Go on LinkedIn and see if you can find something about that person, so that the person, at least you know something about it and you can build a bit of rapport straight away. So there are a few things that you can do to make a situation that is artificial as comfortable and as predictable as you can. That will give you a higher degree of comfort that may not trigger your anxiety.
I think that's a brilliant answer. Yeah, and preparation is key for all of us, right? I think in an interview processes are singularly incredibly stressful experiences, right? So even for the most confident person out there, if you really want that job, you'll probably be quite anxious before that interview. So the better prep you can do, the more comfortable you can feel, the better that is. Lovely question here from Greta Elbracht. Is there a question that is often asked by HR managers that candidates screw up the most? And how would you best reply to not screw up? So what? I guess the question is, yeah, what's the question that everybody gets wrong? What's the one question that everyone doesn't do well?
In my experience, by far, is what do you know about us?
Yeah.
9 out of 10 candidates get it wrong because either they don't know anything, which tells you, wow. It's probably even worse when they don't know anything and they get caught with that question and they try to black themselves out of that question by giving you some rubbish answer that is just like, if you don't know anything, just come clean and say, I don't know anything. I've had candidates that I say, oh my God, I love your hotel. And I go, oh, what do you like about it? Well, I love your food and beverage offerings. And oh, which one do you like the most? It's like, oh man, yeah.
the top one, the one at the top of the building.
Yeah. So I said at the beginning, you don't need to be an expert in my company because you don't work for it yet, but you need to know the basics. And if you are not even prepared with those, with a little bit of information, then ultimately it's for you to show to me how much you want to work with me on this job.
Yep, exactly. 100%, I think. Yeah, never get caught out in a lie. Certainly don't say you know more than you think you do before you get in the, because I mean, gosh, you're speaking to someone who works for that company, who are trusted enough to interview, who are trusted enough to make a decision on who's going to work for that company at a later date. They know more than you. They can hear the mistruth in your voice before you've even started. We'll do one more and then I'll let you go. It's getting to, it's getting a bit dark actually now. So this last question, it's a softball, eh? Are our hosts, so this is from Sylvia, gosh, I can't speak. Are our hobbies actually relevant? Are there some hobbies that are better to display, so such things as yoga, playing an instrument, and some things that should be skipped, like video gaming? Do hobbies, do your type of hobbies matter?
No, they don't matter, but it's a point of connection with the person. It's to try to get a bit of a flavor of the person behind the interviewer or the interviewee. That's all there is. There is no right or wrong answer. Answer with the truth, and being a fantastic skier is as exciting as being a great reader or somebody that likes to follow the latest trends on Netflix. There is no right or wrong answer there. It is about the person getting to know you as a person, not as a worker. And you never know where that question may lead, right? Something that we do sometimes is that when the person tells you a little bit about what they're passionate about, then we use that information and we ask that question so that when we do orientation, we've hired you, we do orientation with you, and then we give a little present to some of our inductees on our induction day. This allows us to tailor their experience on their first day because of what they told us at the interview.
That's fantastic. And I think in that context as well, it gives you a chance as a candidate to speak a bit more like openly. Okay, what are your hobbies? I'm really into video gaming. I love Halo. Have you ever played Halo? Do you have an Xbox? Do you like games? Yeah. You're building again rapport, right? You're sort of connecting with that interviewer on an emotional, on a humanistic level, which is in the end what we want to do. Because what industry are you in? Hospitality.
And then there is another reason why that question often is asked, is because this is a hobby. We're asking you about something that you love doing. If you cannot tell me about something that you love doing and demonstrate passion, going back to the example I gave you with the menu, man, you tell me that you love doing this and you bore me to tears telling me about it. Wow.
Yeah. Unless it's stamp collecting, which is of course very boring.
Oh, my father was a stamp collector. He talked to me for hours about it. I was bored for different reasons, but he was very passionate explaining it.
Exactly. No, and I mean, look, they're wonderful snapshots of history as well, eh? Like, but it's never assume anything at all, and everything just shows your passion, right? Everything is a moment to connect. It's a moment to sort of laugh. It's a moment to build up a better rapport, better relationship, social passion. Give a flavor of yourself.
That's it. And be able to express it in a way that demonstrate, okay, this is what this person looks like when they are passionate.
Yeah, exactly. And you can see the glow, you can see the fire in their eyes, and you're like, come on, I want this person in my organization. I can't wait to see where they grow to. I can't wait to see where this person can take us, not where we can take them. And that's the best part of this wonderful sort of employer-employee, person-to-person relationship that we actually really have.
There is one question that may surprise everyone listening to this call that I ask myself throughout an interview when I interview any candidate for any job. I sit there throughout the interview asking myself, would I take this person for a beer after this interview? And trust me, there are candidates that I would not take them to anywhere, that I would be, oh my God, I cannot wait for this to finish. And this is one of the questions, what are you passionate about that can make the difference? Oh my God, this person is so much fun. They're so into that. And I may not be into that at all, but they are. And oh my God, they're so much fun when they talk about it. Super exciting. I want to take them for a beer. They can tell me all about it because I cannot wait to hear more.
Yeah, because passion's infectious, isn't it? That's the whole point. Passion, if you hear someone's passion, it's infectious. It's like a laugh is infectious, a smile is infectious as well. So a sneeze is, right? All of these things, because it's like shared human experience, and then we're like, oh, wow, that I'm sneezing, I'm going to laugh with you as well. And it is brilliant. Really
Totally.
cool. Well,
Yeah.
Jose, I think I've had enough of your time. I think it's getting very well. We've we've definitely done really well here. So thank you very, very much for your time. This was Jose Ruiz. He's the head of human resources at the W Barcelona. I've been your co-host, Ben Hewison of Hosco. And this has been How to Nail Interviews Like a Boss. And I think if you take out some of the influences that we've given you, your next interview will go swimmingly well.
Amazing.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you,
so much.
everybody. Goodbye.
Bye.